much money could you make if you could invest like a senator right now? How can you see what they invest in? Should you invest in what they have? And is it even legal? Let's go ahead and break it down. So currently, right now, today, Congress people, both in the Senate and House, can invest, which means buy and sell, any stocks that they choose without impunity. However, they do have to disclose it, which means you and I can see exactly what they invest in. However, it's difficult for you to track all of these buys and sells. So there is an ETF. There are two ETFs actually that track the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, which means that you can buy these ETFs and track exactly what they're investing in and get those gains and losses as well. So should you actually buy these ETFs? What are the pros and the cons? I've done some of the research for you. So let's go ahead and break it down and see what is in these ETFs and what are the pros, again, and those cons. So the first thing is this. Let's talk about the holdings between the two. Now, interestingly enough, and this is petty, okay? So the Democratic one is named after Nancy Pelosi, who is perhaps the most famous for quote-unquote insider trading. It's not actually insider trading because for them it's not illegal, but these are people who are passing laws. And again, if you are passing, let's say, the Infrastructure Bill or the CHIPS Act, and you are the one writing a law saying, hey, this is going to help a company like NVIDIA, then you might want to buy NVIDIA, right? So they do have an advantage that you and I don't have. They know what has a higher opportunity to pass before I read about it on Yahoo Finance or something like that. So they have, again, an advantage. So the Democratic one is named after Nancy Pelosi. The Republican one is named after Ted Cruz. And I want to get this right, NANC is the ticker symbol for the Democratic one. KRUZ is the one named after Ted Cruz. Be very careful. Use it with a K, okay? Because CRUZ is a completely different ETF, all right? So those are the two ETFs. Now, how well have they done, and what is one of the cons there? They're only about a year and some change old, okay? So if you go to the max, if I go all the way back on Yahoo Finance, it says here that it goes all the way back to February of 2023. So that's the first thing. These don't have the longest history. If I'm investing in ETF, especially something like an index fund, I want it to have a very long history. This is when the stock market was doing well, right? So I don't know how well this has done when the stock market was down, right? I don't know how it's going to react. I don't know, right, without doing deep dives, how well these senators and Congress people do when the market is down, right? Now, I can be a conspiracy theorist and tell you that they can do all types of stuff and know when things are coming, but I actually do not know that, and I don't know the people managing this fund, how they react when the market is down. So that is a very big con for me. So that is the first, I would say, medium red flag as to why I may not put my own money into a fund like this. However, I can still use it to learn some very valuable information. So the next thing I want to see is its performance. So yes, it has not had a long track record, but what is the track record? All right, so let's go back and see how well it has done. So I want to go ahead and hit max because, again, it hasn't been around for very long. So if you go to Yahoo Finance and see the max history, it has beaten the S&P 500. The Democratic one, to be specific, has beaten the S&P 500 51%, 51.8% to be exact from the time that we're doing this video, compared to the S&P 500 at just 40.8%, which is pretty good. You're beating it by right around 11%, which is good. 11% over the S&P 500 is quite strong. If we go to the Ted Cruz version, that one is underperforming the S&P 500. 25% is a Ted Cruz gain compared to, again, 40.8 for the S&P 500. So one of these is better than the other at this point in time, which means that they're not investing in the same things, which means we need to go look and see what is in these ETFs. Now, I'm not going to break down every single holding here, but I am going to look at the top 5. So let's go ahead and start off with the Nancy one and see what's in the top 5 for that one. And if we just look again at the top 5, and we know this from a previous video that we did about some of her holdings specifically, but we also did a bunch of some of the well-known senators and Congress people, representatives rather, and what they invest in. If you want to learn more about that particular video, you can check out this card here. But just the top 5, we've got Nvidia, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Apple. Okay, so those are the top 5. These are very similar. Okay, so this is another con. If you already own Nvidia, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, I would not go and get this ETF because you are duplicating this all over again. We just did a video earlier this week where I talked about how 70% of the S&P 500, their gains, right, of the entire S&P 500 came from 10 stocks. I guarantee you this was a part of those 10 stocks, right? And I said of that 70%, 30% of it was Nvidia by itself. So you don't want to continue to just reinvest in tech over and over and over and over again and put yourself even more at risk. So be very careful when you are doing that, okay? Just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there. You do what you want to do, but just be aware of that. So that's just some of them. You obviously, if you want to dig more into it, pay more attention to it, you could dig more into it and see what else they're investing in. Maybe you want to dig into it and see what the 9th and 10th stock is, and perhaps those are things that are valuable. Maybe you want to dig more into that and invest there if those stocks are doing well. Into the Ted Cruz ETF, this one is a bit different. JP Morgan is the top holding here. It's only 3.22%, so 3.22% is the highest holding, so it is relatively small, but it is the highest one here. Then you got Nvidia at number 2. Look who's there, right? But then things are very different. You have Comfort Systems USA, not a company I've heard of before, but FIX is the ticker symbol there, not a company that I've heard of before. United Therapeutics Corporation. I remember this one. I think this is one we covered in our previous video on what Congress people, what Congress is buying. Okay, Congress people is just a tough term for me to say today. But if I remember correctly, and we did that video back in March maybe, but I'm pretty sure that's one that we had talked about. I don't remember this stock doing well. If this is the one we cover, I do not remember that stock doing well. Arista Networks, which is a stock that I did buy and made money off of and then sold it. Intel, I think I bought Intel and that stock didn't do well either. I thought it would. It didn't go well, which does tell us something, right? Just because you got insider information, and I do not, okay, I do not have insider information, but just because you think it is going to go well doesn't mean that it will. Okay, not every Congress person does well at this. And we have seen this happen as well. Again, go back and watch that video and you'll see they're not all great investors, which is why these are probably named after the people that they are, because they are perhaps some better than others. I will point out one in the top 10 here. Well, actually, we do see NFG, National Fuel and Gas Company. I'm curious there. Again, we have been talking about energy stocks. This did not show up on my personal list, so I wonder how well this one is doing. It's in the top 10, not in the top 5. So I'm just going to click it here on my screen. Again, I'm curious to see if this stock is doing well, because again, he is in Texas. That doesn't mean that he owns it personally. I'm thinking out loud as I am looking at this right now. And if I just go to the last year, this company is not doing well. So it is down almost 10% in the last year. So a lot of this is explaining why this ETF is not doing all that well compared to the S&P 500. So it's still up. Okay, it's still up, but just not compared to the S&P 500. So that is one of the cons, again, just of ETFs in general, in that you don't control the entire ETF, which is why I always advise outside of index funds, which again, I strongly believe in index funds just broadly. But when you're doing some of these niche, trendy index funds, I do like to dig into what they are holding and to see how they do compared to index funds, what is in them, what is the philosophy behind them, and really see, like, is this something I want to go with? Because if I'm investing in one of them and it's not doing well, I can't just parse out and say, hey, can you just get rid of, 3, 4, and 5 and just invest in these? I own the whole thing. I just have to ride with the whole thing. It's fine when you got 500 stocks. It's fine when it's the entire U.S. stock market and the U.S. stock market is doing well. That's okay. when it's not that, and I'm only investing in what certain senators are doing, not the entire, 568 members or whatever it is, 535, whatever the number is, I'll put it here, right? But it's more difficult, right? Because I don't know what these people are doing. I don't know what information they have. I don't know what their investing philosophies are. It's hard to do. And again, the track record here for the people who created this is not long. It's a lot of question marks here. So not an investment that I would buy. However, there are pieces and things that I would learn from them. So again, one of these is better than the other. So I would dig into Nancy Pelosi ETF and see what's there. See if there are some gems, especially in the tech space, that I might want to invest in that has not come up on my radar that might be worth researching and perhaps adding to my portfolio. If you want to learn more about what other Congress people are investing in, or how you may want to consider investing in an election year, which we are unfortunately in, you want to check out this video right here.